Hey, Passionistas. This is Diann Wingert, and I'm going to be talking to you today about what it's like to build a business that actually works for you when you have an ADHD brain. Now, I want to establish the goals first because when you're taking the time to watch a presentation like this, whether you're showing up live or watching the replay, I want to make sure that you got what you came for. So, the three goals for this talk are to help you recognize the unique strengths that women with ADHD have that they bring to entrepreneurship as advantages, and also clarify the specific challenges that we also have and how to work with them. And then, if you're not yet on the entrepreneurial path, but you identify with ADHD strengths and struggles, how to set yourself up for success. The questions that I am aiming to answer in this talk are: so, which ADHD traits are advantageous and which make entrepreneurship harder? What are some of the common mistakes that female entrepreneurs with ADHD have, and how can I avoid them? What strategies do I need to learn and employ to master my entrepreneurial ADHD? And what kind of support might I need and when? And because boundaries and expectations are two of my core practices, I also want to briefly cover what I'm not going to be covering in this presentation. I like to say, not today, Renee, because the answers to these questions would start with, it depends, such as what kind of businesses are best for women with ADHD traits? Legal, financial, or technical information or advice is beyond the scope of this introductory talk. What marketing strategies work best? It depends. I'd have to know your business, whether ADHD medication would help you be more successful in your business, and whether business coaching or consulting would be most helpful on specific situations or struggles. I could help you with those if you were a client. Now, I won't know who's raising their hand, but I'm going to ask this anyway. Raise a hand or put up a finger if you identify with ADHD, whether you've been diagnosed or not. Raise a hand or put up a finger if you also identify as an entrepreneur, are on the entrepreneurial path, or have a business of your own. And you can't raise a third hand, but you can raise a third finger if you are in the process of thinking about launching a business as either a side hustle or full-time venture with ADHD. And the point of that little exercise is to say, wherever you are awesome. And I cannot say that enough, because while ADHD has many advantages in entrepreneurship, it is not without its struggles, which we're about to get into. Now, why do I have so much to say on this subject? Well, I was officially diagnosed with ADHD about 9 years ago. I am the parent of three adult children with ADHD, and I passed on my ADHD genes and have three different subtypes of ADHD among those kids. I also did my master's thesis on whether ADHD persists into adulthood way back in 1995, and it was not added to the adult section of the DSM until 2013. I have diagnosed hundreds of clients with ADHD as a psychotherapist, and during that entire time, I was also a serial business owner, but I didn't talk about it back then. I began researching the ADHD entrepreneur connection in 2015, and as a result of what I found, I decided to shift exclusively into coaching entrepreneurs with ADHD on their business struggles, because I like to say, wherever you go, there you are. And if you have ADHD, your business does too. Now, why women who have ADHD will often leave a career to start a business is captured in this slide. First and foremost, too many rules, especially rules that we feel are arbitrary. Oftentimes, we feel that the work culture is just not aligned with our values or how we think things should be. Many of us feel that we need to do things our own way, even if we're completely lost and absolutely hate being told what to do or how to do it, even when it's obvious we need help. Many of us felt that we needed to start our own business because we had a boss who always thought he knew more than we did and often took credit for our ideas. Many of us also felt that we could not express our creativity in our work setting, no matter how high up the food chain we were. And oftentimes, people with ADHD, especially Those on the more impulsive, hyperactive side feel that they get impatient and bored really easily, and that people and things move too slow. I certainly agree with feeling that meetings are pointless and frustrating because we talked about the same things again and again and again, and no action was ever taken. Things didn't move forward. For someone with ADHD, that is excruciating. I often thought I had ideas of how I could make things better, but most of the time that was considered to be outside of the scope of my job description, and nobody really wanted to hear it. And first and foremost, and I would say this is true for just about every woman I've ever known who's decided to start their own business with ADHD, is they simply wanted more freedom and flexibility. And if you're a business owner, whether you have ADHD or not, that probably rings true for you as well. Now, I want to say that whether you have started a business or not, whether you are thinking about it, or whether you work for someone else but you have these traits, you can consider yourself entrepreneurial, even if you're not an entrepreneur. Some people also like to use the term intrapreneur, which means an entrepreneurial personality who's working in someone else's business. And you're in good company if this applies to you, because studies of entrepreneurs, and there are many, many studies, and they really range in their outcome. Somewhere between 29% and 67% of all entrepreneurs have ADHD traits. Here are just a few of the well known women that I'm aware of who have ADHD, from Chalene Johnson to Linda Yee, Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank, Keita Burke-Williams, and Mel Robbins. I think probably most of you are aware of Barbara Corcoran and Mel Robbins for sure, and you may now be aware of the others. There are many, many, many other well-known women with ADHD who are entrepreneurs, and this is just a handful that I wanted to share with you. So why are so many of us becoming entrepreneurs? Well, the key lies in our brain chemistry. This is a very basic bit of information, but if you have ADHD and you are a woman, your brain chemistry comes down to two things: serotonin and dopamine. Rule number one, if it feels good, do it. I think there was a song with those lyrics back in the day. But rule number two is, if you get rewarded for what you're doing, you keep doing it. So the brain's feel good neurotransmitter, which regulates mood and focus, is serotonin. That's why antidepressants, one whole entire category of antidepressants, is serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They keep more serotonin in our brain longer so that we feel better and we can focus more. And dopamine, if you've studied ADHD biochemistry at all, you know that dopamine is the neurotransmitter that regulates motivation. So if we feel good doing something and we get rewarded for doing it, we're going to keep doing it. So that's why we become entrepreneurs. And this is my little dancing brain, which is surrounded by the words no brainer, if you can't see that clearly. Because when you become an entrepreneur, you are the one who's making the decisions. And that means you have the opportunity to do more of what you want to do. So you get more dopamine. Now, that's not without problems. There's a very common myth or misunderstanding about what ADHD actually is. It is called an attention deficit disorder, but we don't lack the ability to pay attention. We can't always direct our attention at the most appropriate thing. What I would say that's more accurate is that we have a dopamine deficiency disorder, which means we may not persist long enough at something to get the job done, especially if it's not rewarding to us. So our challenge is not necessarily to manage our attention, but to manage our distractibility and impulsivity so that we can stay focused and finish what we start. If you have ADHD or suspect you might, you're probably much better at starting than you are at finishing, and that can become a big problem, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. Most people's brains, a neurotypical person's brain, is based on what's important. So if someone says, "This is important, I need you to have it done by the end of the day," you probably will. But someone with ADHD has an interest-based brain. So if something's not interesting to them, if it's boring, if it's menial, if it's tedious, if they just think it's arbitrary, it's going to feel like a life threatening condition. So, in order to stay consistent enough at the things we need to do to be successful, two things we need to do as entrepreneurs with ADHD is manage our boredom so that we can stay consistent. And by the way, I know so many people that have wasted so much money and so much time looking for what I call the magic pill. Now, I'm not only referring to an actual pill, although there are plenty of folks who think once they get diagnosed and they take ADHD medication, all of their problems will automatically disappear. This is not true. But there's also no other magic pill when it comes to the perfect planner, the perfect organizer, the perfect project management system, the perfect coach. There is no one size fits all tool, technique, strategy, or person. We have to be willing to experiment to figure out what's going to work for our ADHD because there's a bunch of different traits that are common to folks with ADHD, but we don't all have them in equal measure and with an equal amount of severity and impairment. We need to be willing to figure out what will work for us. And that can take some work. There are a number of things, though, that have helped a lot of other people. And these are just some of the things that I do in my own business and that I help my clients with. You've probably heard of some of them. Time blocking. The idea parking lot is where I don't let brand new shiny ideas distract me from what I do. I put them in the parking lot so I can look at them later when I actually have designated parking lot time. I theme my days. I batch my tasks, and environmental engineering refers to creating and curating the conditions in my day and in my business that make it easier for me to focus on what I need to do and not get distracted by the stuff that I really have no business doing. Also, accountability, accountability, accountability. Many of you have heard of body doubling sessions. That is just one of the many ways that we can create accountability in our business, which we all need to do the things that we don't really want to do. And if things are just impossible for you to do, but absolutely necessary for your business, then outsourcing and delegating may be the only way to go. Now, here's where things get a little dicey because most of us have a love hate relationship with these three things. But I've been ADHD all my life, and I've had plenty of success and plenty of failure. And by this age and stage, with the hundreds and hundreds of people I've helped, these are the three things I think every entrepreneur with ADHD needs, whether they like it or not. One, structure, systems, and a way to capture our ideas so that they don't derail or distract us. In other words, systems and structures that help us manage our executive functioning challenges. Two, coping tools, because something that's less understood about ADHD is that our emotions often interfere with our ability to focus, stay organized, and get things done. We get overwhelmed, we become emotionally dysregulated, and many of us experience rejection sensitive dysphoria. So it not only may prevent us from putting our work out into the world, it may completely overwhelm us if we get critical feedback or we are told no or ghosted. And then lastly, whether we like to be stubbornly self sufficient or not, I certainly was for far too long. Most of us really do benefit from having support and accountability in the form of some type of community. It might just be one other person, but oftentimes it's a group. And it will generally get us further faster when we allow ourselves to have that. So, depending on what subtype you had, you heard me mention that earlier when I said my three kids are three different ADHD subtypes. I have discovered that the different subtypes really do seem to make a difference in what kind of challenges you have as a business owner. The three subtypes are hyperactive impulsive, inattentive distractible, and combined. So, guess which type would be most likely to succeed as an entrepreneur? And since most of you are watching this on the replay, I'm not going to check the chat function. I'm just going to give you the answer. It's combined type. And the reason why is because folks who have combined type ADHD means they have features and traits of being distractible and inattentive, but they also have features and traits of being impulsive and hyperactive. And it is the impulsive and hyperactive traits that make them take more action. Why does this matter? Because taking more action means gaining more experience, including experience with failure. And while the overthinking, inattentive, distractible subtype tries to prevent failure through perfectionism, procrastination, people pleasing, second guessing, overthinking, and analysis paralysis, every successful entrepreneur with ADHD will tell you this: the more action you can take, the more success you will experience. There's absolutely no way to avoid making mistakes. And actually, we can learn how to dance with failure and take the sting out of making mistakes because we always learn something, whether we win or lose. Now, inattentive, distractible types can succeed as entrepreneurs. I've worked with quite a number of them. The challenge there is learning to manage procrastination and perfectionism and to create systems that get them to take action before they feel ready. Because here's the deal: they never feel ready enough. So we have to trick the brain into taking action without the prerequisite of feeling ready. Now, some of the traits that folks with ADHD have, I think, are entrepreneurial assets. I would even call them business advantages if you know how to leverage them. Those include, as I've mentioned, preference for action, working well under pressure. I am the calmest person when everyone else is losing their minds in a crisis. Driven by curiosity, higher than average tolerance for risk, willingness to trust our intuition and act on intuitive hunches, the tendency to see business as an adventure and not as a proving ground for our self worth. Thinking outside the box leads to creative problem solving, and making more mistakes, as I've mentioned, not only means we learn more, but we become more resilient in the process. And Ned Hallowell, who's many think of as the grandfather of ADHD, he's written about 20 books on it. And he is a Harvard trained psychiatrist who has ADHD. He refers to the advantages of these traits as vast. He would like that to be the new term for ADHD, and it stands for variable attention stimulus trait, which means we have a variable attention span, but when we're stimulated, we win. Now, the other traits, the ones that are genuine struggles, and why I will never refer to ADHD as a superpower, because that totally undermines and discounts the genuine painful struggles that so many people with ADHD have, including rejection sensitivity and emotional dysregulation, shiny object syndrome that has us chasing every new thing and completely ignoring what we were working on before, losing motivation quickly after starting a new project. We're great at starting, not so great at finishing. If you're the more hyperactive, impulsive style of ADHD, you will talk a lot. You will talk too much. You will interrupt. You will blurt things out. And that communication style can really wear other people out and even make them think that you're rude and disrespectful. We can be very impatient and impulsive, and our high energy and intensity, while maybe impressive, can also be very difficult for other people to work with. One of the most painful things for me is forgetfulness and lack of follow through. I am quite honestly the queen of good intentions, but don't always remember to follow through on what I've promised. I try to work with that by writing it down, but if I'm caught off guard or I'm on the fly, it might not always happen. I often refer to as the unholy trinity of procrastination, perfectionism, and people pleasing, which is especially true for inattentive, distractible subtype women, and losing things, misplacing things, and being generally disorganized. If somebody tells me they think they're a low key hoarder, I'm going to question whether or not they may have ADHD because it's a very common trait. And it's not so fun when you not only are disorganized in your physical space, but in your digital space as well, which is true of many business owners with ADHD. So, if you want to be successful in business with an ADHD brain, it comes down to balancing the three things that you see on the screen in front of you. Doing what interests you. I cannot say this enough. Now, if you're going to have a viable business, it also has to be something that people want and they're willing to pay for. But you need to be interested in it because we need the passion and the purpose to keep on going. We also need to create conditions in and around us that suit us and support us, whether that's having an absolutely quiet space or doing a lot of our work in a coffee shop where there's a lot of hustle and bustle. Understanding what our brain needs to focus and function at its best is critical, and then creating the conditions that we thrive with and giving ourselves permission to do that without apology. And lastly, crafting a business that matches our strengths and either eliminating, automating, or delegating everything else. And that usually takes a little getting to when you're bootstrapping from the beginning. You have to be able to do all of the things until you have the money to pay others. So I think that's one of the reasons why so many of us don't make it past the first 3 years. But I often tell my clients to set their first revenue goal at being able to afford to hire a virtual assistant who can take some of those things off their plate. Now, many of us make mistakes that can be avoided when you know what to look for. Here's the ones that I see most often with the clients who come to work with me. Starting their business without a plan. Many of us just literally a wing and a prayer, and oftentimes that's because we are people who experience passion and purpose, and we run with it. And that's a beautiful thing, but we usually need a basic plan because sooner or later we're going to run out of passion and purpose, and we won't know what to do next. Another one I see quite often is having really unrealistic expectations about how long things will take, whether that's how long it takes to build an audience for a podcast, a blog, or YouTube, or how long it's going to take until you genuinely feel comfortable and confident marketing your business. Spending time and money on things that don't move the needle, like that $10,000 website when you don't have any clients and you don't even know what you're selling. Being so driven by passion and purpose that we completely forget business means you need to make a profit. Unless you want your so called business to be a very expensive hobby, you have to balance passion, purpose, and profit. Something I see very often is shifting focus too often because if the results don't come immediately, the newbie business owner thinks, well, this must not be the right thing. And so then they try something else. Oftentimes, they just needed to stay with it a little bit longer and develop more consistency and patience. And the last one on the short list is trying to do everything on our own or hiring the wrong kind of help. It's easy to make this mistake when you're just getting started because you don't know what you don't know. But there are many, many groups where you can get information for free, and there are plenty of people you can hire to help you as well. So, really, having a business that works for and with your ADHD brain comes down to leveraging your strengths, so knowing what you're good at, and minimizing your struggles, whether that's eliminating things from your business because you're not good at it, or hiring someone to help you get better at it or do it for you. I refer to that as mastering your entrepreneurial ADHD. The basics that I teach all of my one on one clients for creating kind of, I call it my scaffolding, are installing a pause button for the default yes. Now, it's not a genuine pause button, it's an imaginary one. It's in your mind. And the default yes is our impulsivity that wants to say yes to that new idea or say yes to that client that we have no business working with or that collaboration with someone that brings nothing to the table. We have to learn how to pause on that default yes, because scattering our energy is never going to take us to the promised land. And saying yes to too many things means saying no to working with our strengths and our goals. Radical self acceptance is my absolute foundation, which is to say, not love me, love my ADHD, or I take no responsibility for how my behavior affects others. That's not radical self acceptance. Radical self acceptance is I get to know who I am and how I am, and there's nothing that can make me hate myself, shame myself, or blame myself. Those things are off the menu. When you decide that I am okay, I just need to learn how to work with the brain I've got instead of the brain I thought I was supposed to have, that creates a lot of self trust and a lot of independence and confidence. When I talk with my clients about getting to know their fly zone, what I'm referring to is deeply understanding that while our imagination may be unlimited, our capacity is not. Our bandwidth is eaten up by disorganization, distractibility, not setting good boundaries with other people. So we need to know how much we can really handle and not just keep piling things on our plate like we're going through a buffet. Managing the extremes in decision making of both impulsivity and overthinking, I teach my clients a lot of structure to kind of help them steer clear of those extremes so they make better decisions and they make them more quickly. Utilizing structure for productivity is a no brainer. And most of us say, oh, I just like to wing it, or I just can't have too much routine. And I'll tell you, if this is you, I promise you, you have routines. They're just not helping you. So embracing structure willingly and only as much as you need so that you can operate with what I call creative flexibility. That is how we win with ADHD as entrepreneurs. I also teach a decision matrix that is a combination of your core values and your current priorities. So any opportunity that comes your way has to be vetted according to those two things. And if it's not in alignment with at least three of your top five core values and three of your top five core priorities, it has to be a no. Creating systems that can take us from idea to implementation is a big part of what I teach my private coaching clients. And I personally love using transition rituals, which I've been using since I had kids at home, and they're now all grown adults, for starting things so that we get past our procrastination, stopping on time so we stop tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and trying to make it better, and then shifting gears from one thing to the next. Having rituals in place means we have a lot less decision fatigue and we can move from one thing to the other much more readily. So that has been an introduction to how to have an ADHD friendly business and how to manage your entrepreneurial ADHD. But if you'd like to know more, there are three ways you can do so, at least from me. The ADHD-ish podcast, which is for business owners with busy brains. I've been producing a weekly episode for 5+ years. So there's lots of juicy goodness there in the feed. I've got a new guide called the Start, Stop, Shift Toolkit for ADHD entrepreneurs that you can get on my website. And there's many, many, many more things on the website, which is diannwingertcoaching.com. So I want to thank you for your attention, for spending these few minutes with me. If you are an entrepreneur with ADHD, I see you. I applaud you and I celebrate you. It is not easy to build a business with an ADHD brain, but as you heard from this presentation, there are many of us out there who are finding ways to work around our struggles and amplify our strengths. So I welcome you to connect with me either in the Passionistas project, where I'm a member, or you can find me on LinkedIn at Diann Wingert Coaching, or certainly on my website. Thanks for being here.